At that time, my mistress was a woman, playful, audacious, as though fate itself had decided to mock me. Naturally, she was married. Prostitutes inspire in me a saving fear, for what joy is there in sharing a body that belongs to everyone and to no one at once? It is a double inconvenience, and even if one sets aside moral considerations, the very thought of turning love into a trade fills me with repulsion. I confess, that is my weakness. A bachelor involved with a married woman acquires a peculiar refuge, cozy, almost domestic, where everyone pampers him, from the husband down to the servants. There one finds all the blessings of life, love, friendship, care, sleep, and food. And beyond that, a rare privilege, the chance to change families as one changes costumes, enjoying rustic simplicity in summer, bourgeois comfort in winter, and, if fortune smiles, even aristocratic splendor. I have another weakness. I grow attached to the husbands of my mistresses. A woman, however charming she may be, ceases to attract me if her husband is coarse or vulgar. But if he is intelligent, captivating, then I fall madly in love with his wife. Even when parting from her, I strive to preserve my friendship with him. Thus I have gained my best friends, convinced again and again of the superiority of the male sex over the female. A woman brings endless quarrels, reproaches, and scenes. A man, though he has no fewer reasons to resent you, treats you instead as though you were the benevolent spirit of his hearth. My beloved was dark-haired, whimsical, capricious, devout and superstitious like a monk, and yet utterly enchanting. She kissed in a way unlike anyone else. Her skin was tender, like morning mist, and her eyes blue, radiant, like the seventh heaven, promising delight. Her gaze pierced the heart, intoxicating slowly and sweetly. Her husband, an inspector at a large insurance company, was seldom at home, and the nights belonged to us. I would lie on the divan, pressing my forehead to her knee, while beside us dozed a great black cat named Misty. Our fingers met upon his supple back, caressing each other through his silken fur. My cheek felt the warmth of his side, trembling with constant purring, and at times his outstretched paw brushed my lips with claws that barely pricked the skin before vanishing again. Sometimes we went out to misbehave, as she liked to say. Yet our mischief was innocent, a supper in a suburban tavern, a cheap café where we sat like students in high spirits. We chose taverns beloved by the common folk, smoke-filled rooms, rickety chairs, old wooden tables. The air was thick with fumes, the smell of fried fish, men in blouses shouting and drinking. The waiter, astonished at our presence, set before us 2 glasses of cherry brandy. She trembled with fear and delight, lifting her double black veil only to the tip of her nose, sipping the liqueur with such rapture as though committing a crime. Each cherry seemed to her a new sin, each burning swallow, a forbidden ecstasy, sweet and searing. She would lean toward me and whisper softly, "Let's go," and we would leave. With her head bowed, she hurried through the crowd of drunkards in quick, almost invisible steps, their bleary eyes following her with disapproval, as though she had disturbed their grim order. Yet the moment we stepped outside, she sighed with relief, as if we had just escaped a mortal trap. At times, trembling, she would ask, "And if someone insulted me in such a den, what would you do?" Straightening my shoulders, I would reply with boastful fervor, "I'd defend you, by heaven." Then her fingers would clasp mine tightly, and in that gesture one could sense a secret desire, that she might indeed be insulted, that I might rise to her defense, that men might fight over her, even the most wretched of them. One evening, in a shabby Montmartre tavern where the tables wobbled and the walls reeked of wine and smoke, an old woman in rags appeared, clutching a greasy deck of cards. Catching sight of my companion, she approached at once, offering to tell her fortune. Emma, credulous and superstitious, quivered with excitement and seated her beside us. The crone, wrinkled, toothless, her eyes veiled with a milky film, spread the grimy cards upon the table. She divided them into piles, gathered them again, muttering indistinct words. Emma grew pale, listening breathlessly, filled with anxiety and curiosity. The predictions came like fragments of a dream: happiness, children, a fair-haired man, a journey, money, a trial, a dark-haired man, a return, good fortune, death. The word death pierced her like a needle. Whose death? When? From what? The old woman smirked. The cards alone will not say. Come tomorrow. I shall read for you in coffee grounds, they never deceive. Emma, distressed, turned to me. Shall we go to her tomorrow? Please, do this for me, or I shall be consumed with anxiety. I laughed. We'll go, if it pleases you so. The old woman gave us her address. The next day we climbed to the 7th floor of a dilapidated house beyond Butte-Chaumont. Her room was narrow, furnished with 2 chairs and a bed, yet filled with strange objects. Bundles of herbs hung from nails, dried insects lay in jars, vials of colored liquids glimmered in the half-light. From the table a stuffed black cat stared at us with glassy eyes, as though an evil spirit guarded the hovel. Emma, weakened by agitation, sank onto a chair. Darling, look, he resembles our Misty. She explained to the old woman that she had a cat just like him. The witch replied gravely, If you love someone, do not keep such a cat. Emma asked in fright. Why not? The old woman took her hand as though she were kin. It brought me misfortune. Emma could not restrain herself, questioning, pressing, imploring. Superstition bound them together. And at last the old woman began her tale. I loved that cat as a brother. I was young then, alone, working as a seamstress. I had no one in the world but him, Mouton. He was clever, gentle, adored me. By day he purred upon my knees, by night he slept on my pillow, his heart beating beside mine. But one day I met a young man from a linen shop. For 3 months I kept him at a distance, but at last I yielded, for I loved him. He was kind, sweet, wished to live with me. One evening I invited him in. At first he spoke tenderly, and my heart melted. Then he kissed me, truly kissed me, as one does when in love. I closed my eyes, and suddenly heard a cry. Opening them, I saw Mouton had fastened himself to his face, claws tearing the flesh, blood streaming in torrents. I tried to wrench the cat away, but he was mad, he bit me too. In despair I seized him and flung him out the open window. It was summer. When I bent over the face of my poor friend, I saw with horror that his eyes had been clawed out, yes, both eyes. In that instant the world seemed to collapse, and I nearly cried out in terror. He had to be taken to the hospital. I begged him to stay with me, to let me care for him, feed him, warm him with my presence. But he refused. Hatred settled in his heart, as though I myself were the cause of his misfortune. A year later he withered away, he died of grief, of emptiness, of the inability to forgive. And Mouton, my cat, broke his spine in the fall. The concierge picked him up, and I, unable to part with him, had him stuffed. For if he acted so, it must mean he loved me, mustn't it? Loved me madly, to the point of sacrifice. The old woman fell silent. Her fingers stroked the lifeless mount, trembling upon its wire frame, as though some shadow of a soul still lingered within. Emma's heart ached. She forgot the foretold death, dared not speak of it. We left in silence, leaving the old woman 5 francs. The next day her husband was to return, and I stayed away for several days. When I came again, I was surprised not to see Misty. I asked where he was. Emma blushed and answered softly. I gave him away. I was uneasy. I was astonished. Uneasy? Uneasy about what? She kissed me fervently and whispered. I was afraid for your eyes, my dear. Ladies and gentlemen, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Share your impressions and thoughts in the comments. I will be glad to talk with you.